a lot of times people say, well, does it really matter if we elect women? Well, I take you back to 1992. 1992 was a watershed year for women running for Attorney General. Christine Gregoire, a woman by the name of Pam Carter in Indiana, the first African-American woman elected statewide in the country. Jan Graham from Utah, a pro-choice, pregnant Catholic woman from Utah who got elected Attorney General that year. Me, and then eventually Janet Napolitano, Jennifer Granholm, and we joined Frankie Sue Del Papa, and we joined Mary Sue Terry and Bonnie Campbell from Iowa, who became the first administrator of the Violence Against Women program. So why do I tell you that story? I tell you that story because single-handedly these women changed the agenda of the National Association of Attorneys General. We came, and unbeknownst to any of us, domestic violence was a huge part of how we ran and why we ran. And, you know, I remember going out and talking about why I was running for Attorney General in 1992 and talking about the most violent crime in North Dakota occurred in family, occurred in the home, occurred in trusted relationships. And finally, a very enlightened reporter raises his hand. He goes, enough of those women issues. Are you going to talk about gambling? And I just kind of went right back at him. I said, this is the most serious violent crime that we have in our state. And we need to change the dynamic because at that time, domestic violence programs were where in state government? They were in public health. This was considered a public health problem. Now it is, to some degree, still a public health problem. But until we criminalized this behavior, we didn't see dramatic changes. Until we shamed victims. You know, all those guys who couldn't help themselves, all of a sudden could help themselves if their name was in the paper being charged for domestic assault. And so I'm a big believer that in this area, the low-hanging fruit is getting deterrence by actually getting prosecutions. And so we changed the dynamic. And we changed the discussion. And so where we had community policing, we did all those programs that were in the big crime bill. But we changed the dynamic and I think elevated the concern for violence and started working with the groups. The advocacy groups were way ahead of us. Working with the advocacy groups to change how people looked at this problem as a criminal justice problem and not just a family issue. And so as a result, I think we've seen some good results. But we aren't done yet, and that whole Violence Against Women Act was a rallying cry, but it was a culmination of years of women advocates screaming in the dark, pay attention. People are dying. People are dying in their homes, pay attention. And eventually the government did, and we got the Violence Against Women Act, and we got a number of state law reforms that were absolutely instrumental to achieving the change that we want to achieve. We need to continue to not believe that our job is done, but to continue to recognize that if we are going to prevent domestic violence, if we're going to prevent human trafficking, we need to start at a very early age. We need to continue to do the things that we do to empower women and girls. And we need to change the dynamic that women are not property across this world and even in this country. Women and children do not belong to anyone. They belong to themselves.